So today we are going to talk about what to do after bringing the plants home from a nursery. And this you can look at as a part two of what we discussed yesterday on how to buy plants at a nursery. Just a next step to the same thing. And so let's start. Okay. Okay, so bringing home plants from nursery is always a very tricky thing. Yesterday also a lot of people were saying when I bring plants home, after that they die. And we have to first understand one concept here so that everything else that I discuss from now on will fall in place. And that is known as stress. We know stress, right? We feel stress and plants feel stress too. So when we talked about in a couple of days back about underwatering, overwatering, that is one kind of stress, and that's why the leaves start turning yellow and they react due to many other reasons too. But the main thing is that is known as water stress. And for plants, when you bring them home from nursery, they have a wide range of stress that they feel. One is of the relocation, and some people get them repotted, so there's a transplantation stress. Then they might actually get bent, or the stems might be broken off. There's an additional stress from there. And when you put them into a different light condition, then there's another stress. So our goal essentially is for happier plants, we need to minimize the number of things that create stress to the plant in that situation. That's the idea. We have to keep those things at a minimum, absolute minimum. And how can we do that? So firstly, when you transport, right, we understand that it creates stress for the plant. So we should generally prefer transporting lesser distance if we are transporting it in a car, because the plants will not be able to be in the open air. They'll be cramped up. Their leaves and stems would be crushed together. So always, if you can if you're, so let's say for example, if you're getting a big plant, now there are two options you have. You can put it in the back trunk and shut the trunk, and some leaves and stems are going to get crushed. Or the other thing is, how about put them in the front seat and then they get more space to be, or in the back seat and then they get more space to be. In both this first and second, in the second and third scenario, the leaves and the stem stress would be lesser. But let's consider something else. If you have a lot of plants and you can really jam pack them into a trunk, they will not move around. But when you put them in front seat or back seat, they will move around, and that can create a bigger impact for them when you do braking or things like that. And so there's no right or wrong answer, but the point is, once you see the plants that you're going to bring in, you have to put them in a manner that they move least. They should not move a lot. And here again, the carton that we talked about yesterday, that helps, because when you have it in cartons, you're able to put them in a manner that the cartons don't move, and within the cartons, the plants are not moving, right? So firstly, the plants should not be moving left to right, front, back when they're inside your vehicle, and they should not be crushed. But the second important thing is, when you're bringing plants home, and this has nothing to do with stress, but this is general plant care. When you bring home plants from nursery, where to keep them when you bring them first? And I would suggest one of the very important things is keep them outdoors and keep them away from all other plants that you have, at least for a day or two, if possible. And why is that? Firstly, it doesn't matter where the plant belongs, keep them outdoors. If possible, keep them outdoors in a balcony or place where they'll get sun, because even under that net that we talked about yesterday, even in that shade, the plants were getting much more light there than they will get inside your home, right? So when you keep them outdoors, they're still getting much lesser light probably from what they were getting in a nursery, but this helps as a transition phase, right? And this is a great place to keep them and keep them away from other plants, because if they have pests or insects, right? Even with all the care that you take, it's possible that the plants that you bring might bring some pests with them. And in a couple of days, you get some chance to have a better look at the plant to identify any pests. Maybe if they're ants or other things, you'll see them crawling around, and you can take the right action rather than introducing them inside. So I think few sessions back, somebody was asking about the insects that I would have here, and I told them, I mean, I don't have any insects except for a couple of house lizards, and that's it. And the reason is, before introducing a plant into your ecosystem anywhere, be it even your balcony or be it your indoor garden, before you do that, and is everybody able to hear me? Hello? Actually, my mic here, it's not. Okay, perfect. So somehow I'm not able to see the mic volume go up and down here, so I was wondering. Uh, okay, so before you introduce any outside plant into your ecosystem, it's always important what we are going through right now, right? The isolation. Give them a bit of isolation from your other plants. That is very important. That will go a long way, right? Now let's come to another question, very important thing, whether to get your plant repotted when you buy it or not, right? And here's where we have to refer back to what we discussed about stress. There are multiple stresses, like we can't avoid the stress of transportation, right? There's going to be change of location, but we can make it gradual, like we just discussed. We are going to first keep them outdoors and then get them indoors if they're indoors. But repotting is one of the stress that we can avoid. So when you can repot and when not to repot, I'll tell you, like say, if you're bringing a plant which was under the shade and you want to keep it in your balcony where it's going to get a decent amount of filtered sunlight. So the stress of sorry. So the stress of change of light conditions is going to be very minimal. At that time, you can think of getting it repotted. But say if you're going to bring a plant and you're going to put it in your sitting room or indoors, and it's a plant that you have also transported, obviously, and then you get it repotted also, then you're giving it all possible kinds of stress. And that's where I would say, please don't get it repotted right away. Wait for a month in its new location and then repot it. And I know a lot of people are like, how do I repot? I don't know how to repot. I asked my nursery person to repot, and we'll do a session on how to repot. But if you want your plants to be healthier, avoid repotting right away. I would really suggest that. Repot it after it has spent 3 weeks, 4 weeks in your new place. And it is going to be very natural that when you bring plants home, their leaves will shed. And just like we discussed yesterday, the sign is always new growth. So once you bring in home, whether to know whether your plant is doing well or not, don't focus on the leaves, the existing leaves. Just see if your plant starts showing growth of new leaves, new buds, and things like that, that means it's doing a good job. It is extremely possible, very probable, it's highly likely, and it happens that your old leaves shed. They might turn yellow and shed. Sometimes they might just shed because of physical damage, but most of the time they just turn yellow and they shed, and that's okay as long as you're getting new growth. And this is the same reason what we discussed yesterday, why we don't also buy plants focusing on their leaves, because we know they might shed those leaves once we bring in home, and that's why there's no point getting attached to the aspect of leaves when purchasing, transporting, and putting the plants. Obviously, except if it is a snake plant. I mean, snake plant, the leaves is the only thing it has. It doesn't have a stem, right? So that's a very different matter. But in general, broadly speaking, for any other plant, that's what you have to look at. So just very simple things that we have done till now. I'll talk about. Firstly, when you're transporting, be very careful, be very mindful when you're transporting the plant from nursery to home. because there are a lot of stresses, and one of the stress is transportation stress, one of the biggest stress. Then it comes to when you bring the plant home, put it into an isolation away from the other plants, and so that any insects or any infection that they're bringing in cannot get to your plants. Number three is it doesn't matter whether the plant you're going, whether the plant is a low light plant or bright light plant. When you bring it home, keep it outdoors, keep it in ample amount of indirect sunlight, so that it can adjust well from its position in nursery to new place and then to a lower light. So we are gradually adjusting the stress that the plant is feeling. And about repotting, it's best to postpone the repotting for at least 3 weeks after bringing it home. Actually, they say it's best to postpone repotting after 3 weeks when it's on the place where it has to be. So once you bring it from nursery, once it's in balcony, then it has gone to the room that it has to be. From there, count 2 to 3 weeks, it starts showing new growth, then we can repot it. And if you don't want a plastic pot or something like that in your room, one of the other ways is you can just put the pot inside a better pot. And that way you don't have to repot it. It can stay in the pot that it is in, but it can still look better. So I don't do that, but I have one of that kind. So I'll just show it to you. This is not a perfect example because this pot is bigger, but essentially you can keep it like this. So that works. And that was one visit. Okay, so we'll move to the other point, but before that, I see some messages here. Thank you, Gitanjali. I'm happy you like this. Okay, thank you, Aparna. Yes, I'm doing fine. Okay. So what are the other things that we have to take care once we get the plants home? There's a question by Subita Suhas, and hi Subita, about the soil mix. We'll talk about this when we do the repotting. Okay. Okay. So one of the other questions that we get when people talk about bringing the plants home is how to take care of them, because like some of the questions were there that they do well in nursery but they die as soon as I bring them home. So I'm just assuming that you have taken care of these 3-4 steps when you're transitioning it in. Then you have to look at 3 very important things. The right watering. We have discussed this. We have done a video on this, so I'm not going to repeat it. But make sure you're watering it right. If I see the number one reason plants are dying is because of overwatering, just look at that video, how to water your plants correctly. That would be helpful. Then there was a question about, then there is light. Again, we have done this one full 30-40 minutes about light and plants. Just look at that. It is absolutely essential to take care of the light requirements and put the right plant at the right place. So that has been covered. And the third thing is nutrition. We have to feed the plant for if it has to grow. So do take care of that. There's no other alternative to it. I see comments and questions regularly. My plant is not growing anymore, even if it is not dying. That's the thing. And just like everyone, like us humans who need nutrition to grow, to stay healthy, and the plants need it, right? It's these 3 things. Always take care of light, water, nutrition, light, water, nutrition. Nothing else matters, right? Everything else is a derivative. So when we talk about say soil is a derivative of how much water do we want to give to the plant, right? Oh, extremely well draining soil is because the plant needs very less water, and say a coco peat or other things are because they can retain water. So that's the thing, and it's extremely important that we take care of these things. One more point about shopping from nursery and bringing plants home. When is the best time? Let's say time of the day when it is the best to bring your plants home. I would say always prefer bringing them home in the early part of the day, right? That way, after having the stress of transport, they're able to be at your balcony in light trying to adjust, versus they had a transportation stress and now they are in a dark balcony where they're not even able to repair themselves or immediately start using the light and get into a better position. So that is one in the morning in till 11, 10, 11, you judge depending upon where you are. But the second more important thing is don't leave them in your car, especially not overnight, especially not even during the day, because it will get very hot inside. I have done that and I've seen other people do it. It's not the right thing to do. Even if your plant is okay when you bring it out, it will be a struggle for a longer time. Uh, it's a very big hassle to leave a plant inside a closed car for say 12 hours, 10 hours, and then bring it home. Even if it looks fine, it will start struggling for 2, 3 days. So whenever you're going and bringing plant home, bring it in early part of the day, and secondly, don't leave it in the car. So if we have to just look at a timeline, and now it's just figuring it in mind, we should look at it as a timeline, right? So let's look at it this way. So you go to the nursery, you've picked up the plants, right? Because you saw yesterday's video, you got great plants. Now what to do? You put them in your car, but put them in a manner that they don't really move around a lot, and we are not going to break any of their branches. If we need them to bend or something like that, we gently bend them first and then close the doors. So we bring them home, hopefully in cartons or anything. Then what do? We put them in a place where they can get sun, but they are away from our other plants. They should be away. They should be, now we understand, we need to incorporate social distancing for our plants, right? So they need to be a bit away from all other plants so that they don't infect the older plants which are at home. It is surprising how well we understand this concept right now. Anytime else that I would have had to talk about this, it would have been such a challenge to explain. But right now it's like, yes, I know, keep the plants away, move on, next step. So we have kept the plants away and we keep them there for a couple of days, or say 1 day, 2 day, depending upon plant to plant, and then try to move it into a location where it's going to get lesser light for 1 day, and then move it to the place where I'm going to keep it. Basically, we are trying to adjust the light stress for the plant very gradually so that it can adopt. Until now, we have not done any repotting. We have not touched any other thing. Don't prune, don't repot, don't touch the plant in any other way. Let it first adjust to this climate, this place, and let it recover from every stress of travel and change of location. And now after 3 weeks, 4 weeks, when we want, we can repot. But if we wanted to be in a great looking pot in our indoor homes, then what we can do is we can take a bigger pot and put this smaller pot inside that one. That's a decor tip. That's not a plant tip, but I've learned it interacting with so many of you, that you know what, put your pot inside a better looking pot and it looks amazing. I don't do that much. I mean, I have still these, and there's no way I can get these one in and out of China pots. So that's my essential points here, and I will take some questions. Okay, Aishwarya Lakshmi is amazing. She says, don't follow any schedule for watering water when the soil is dry. This is amazing. That's what we learned. Okay. Okay, Ritushri Pradhan says, is there any particular time to water the plants apart from when the soil is dry? Any schedule we should follow? Sorry, I forgot to ask you in the water. I think what she means is, should we water in the morning, evening, or afternoon, or things like that? So, yes, generally, I would say it's always preferable to water in the morning, right? But then it is always necessary to water when needed. So even if the best time you can do it is in the evening, it doesn't matter, do it in the evening. But as long as you're watering when the soil is dry. When people say don't water in the evening, it is going to create fungus and it is going to create issue. That is true, especially only when you're watering excessively, you're watering the leaves. Like, don't mist the leaves in the evening. That I would definitely say. Don't bathe the leaves or the plant in the evening. That will get water stuck. The chances of any disease increases. I think that's your question, Ritu. That's there. I bought a plant with colored leaves. It's growing well, but the leaf color changes. Oh, thank you. Thank you for this question, Veena MC. Very important question. Because I was seeing this question so many times on my Instagram DMs. The color of the leaf, right? And what do you say? Just give me a second. Do I see it here? I had this plant which had 3 or 4 colored leaves in the same plant. And so I thought I'll show it to you. And one of the very important things here to notice, even the variegated plants or the plants which are colored, like say croton or any other plant, the color depends a lot on the light conditions. Have you ever had a hibiscus plant where the color of the flower changed from red to orange over time? Have you ever seen this, experienced this? Or for any other plant where generally the color of the flower was red and then it changed towards orange or pink? It happens and it's common because there are, I won't say because I'm not remembering 100%, but let's say it this way, that the color red, so there are other colors also, but say the color red directly depends upon something that is generated in presence of light density, right? And whatever color you see in the plants, just like what we see in TV and screens, it's not a single color pigment, it's made from multiple colors. So if one color pigment is going to go die or going to go down or it's going to go higher, the colors are going to change. And green is a color. But what we do is we say for plants, color is anything other than green, and if it is becoming green, then it is doesn't have any color. So the color, green is also a color. And so with plants, it can very well happen that the situations there was very different from what you're giving at home. And I'll tell you, probably correct me if I'm wrong, Veena MC, are you talking about I'm forgetting the name. Manoj, what's that name of the plant? Poinsettia. Are you talking about poinsettia? Because poinsettia gets these red color, pink color, white color leaves, right? But these leaves are basically happen when there's 12 hours of darkness. So what do? Normally around Christmas, this will happen normally, and that's why this plant is very highly associated with Christmas. But what they do in for nurseries is, since September, October, they start putting plant in 12 hours of darkness and 12 hours of light artificially. They turn red and then they're sold. But when you bring them home, they don't have that schedule of darkness and light anymore. So they lose that color. Or the new leaves that are coming are not going to be colored, right? So that's the thing. The thing is with colored pigments and leaves and flowers, the color is going to change based on the amount of light availability and the intensity also. Why my lemon chili sarson not growing? Mita June, but yesterday you told me your tomato was growing and your one more thing was growing for you. Lemon does take about 10-12 days to germinate. So okay, before I go into these questions, I think let me just check if there's any questions related to today's session. Uh, okay. So firstly, thank you so much for being here. And I'll do a just quick recap of everything that we discussed today. But before I do that, I'll tell you, we are very new to YouTube, and it's mostly just me. Even though I say we, I mean, in this time of lockdown, it's just me, and I love coming and talking to you every day at 4. It's a great experience getting this feedback, me learning, and us growing together, which I'll be just taking up right away. So, but one of the things that I'm learning about YouTube is, which I've never done on Instagram, so it's a bit odd for me. But one of the things that I'm learning about YouTube is there's something called a like button and there's something called a subscribe button. And the YouTube basically takes this live video, uploads it as a normal video, and it will show to more people only when it gets a direct feedback from you that you like this video when you were here. And also, if you subscribe to the channel, then you get automatically informed about the new upload. That's my only thing. I mean, rest you all are smart. The like button looks like this. I mean, it looks like this. I don't know whether they switch it. So if it looks like this. So yeah. So let's do a quick recap of everything that we discussed today. And the question is how to take care when you're bringing home plants from nursery, right? And number one we discussed about is when you're transporting plant, it creates stress. So just make sure that transport stress is least by putting plants in a very comfortable position and so that they do not move during the car journey. The second point is once you bring plants home, keep them in isolation from all other plants. Keep them outdoors first so that they get some light and the transition from the light at nursery and light indoors is not harsh. So we keep them outdoors. But even outdoors, we try to keep them isolated from other plants so that they cannot spread diseases and insects to our existing plants. Very important. The third point is we gradually bring them home. We gradually bring them inside from outdoors to our inside, and we do not repot for at least first 3 weeks. We repot only after we start to see the new signs of growth. And it's natural and it's okay if the old leaves are shedding. All we are concerned is, do we see any new sign of growth? And what's the best time to bring plant home? Actually, anytime you love, you can bring the plant home whenever possible. But the best would be to get it in early part of the day so that even after all the stress of the journey, it still has time to really adjust and heal itself in sunlight. And the last and very important, never leave your plants in a car locked. That's not going to be a great thing. Thank you so much. That's mostly about today's session. I'll still be taking questions. And like always, we'll be having meeting tomorrow at 4. For tomorrow and day after, I'll be sending you the topics in a mail and SMS very shortly. They'll also be uploaded here. So what I do is, I also create a thumbnail and put a video. Now I'm doing 2 days or 3 days at a time. So this was the second day. That's why the 2-part series got done. And then we'll do a 3-day thing. And thank you so much. And thank you for coming. Now I'll just show you firstly update on my, this is, I think, ready to eat now. This would be my sarson. And this would be methi. Isn't it amazing? I love it. Okay. Thank you, Mita Jun. Mita says really clear and good session. How many days will tomato seed take to grow? For tomato seed to germinate, I think 7 days, 5 to 7 days is what it takes to germinate. People have already had tomato seeds germinated. In fact, Mita was yesterday, I think, telling that her seeds were germinated. Will you help in clearing the doubts regarding the coriander planting? You haven't updated the third step. I did the planting required, inspired from you. Musa Koya, can you tell me where have you done in coriander? I know coriander we had done in November. So one of the lacking thing with coriander was we did updates on stories at that time, so it's not saved in as any video. Uh, Coriander, we have taken the seeds, we soak them in water. No, we crush them, then we soak them in water overnight, and then we sprinkle them on the soil. And then we cover it with a slight layer of soil, and then it germinates and it creates great coriander. Now, the third step is essentially to see it grow and to cut it, water it regularly, and put it in a sunny place once it germinates. Once it germinates, put it in a sunny place, because coriander gets insects very quickly. So if we have it in a shade or some place, there's a chance that we water the leaves in the evening, what I was just talking about, and then the insects come in, and we don't want that happening. So Subita, my tomato and even cucumber germinated. Subita, was it you who shared that only one seed of each has germinated on Instagram? I just saw that before coming to this one. My Kashmiri gulab plant was so good earlier. Now the leaves are turning brown. Can we keep it in full sun? Yes, yes, yes. Gulab, rose, any flowering plant, keep it in full sun. You will love it. Sukriti says, Setia says, can grow bag plants be potted right away? I would not. I would recommend still wait for a couple of days, 5, 6 days, even with grow bags. The plant doesn't know it's a grow bag. For plant, it's as good as a pot because the soil. In fact, for grow bag, the soil is harder. You'll see that in this one, you'll have a softer soil, right? I don't know if you can see. You'll have a softer soil. But the ones that come in grow bags or plastic bags or things like that, the plants that come there, the leaves are the soil is much harder. And when we repot that, the roots get hurt more. We'll also be doing a video on how to repot. We'll do. Adya Gupta's capsicum is growing and can in vegetable plants need fertilizer. How many days? Please let me know. All plants need fertilizer. Vegetable plants definitely need fertilizer because any plants from which you expect a performance, there's an expectation. It needs fertilizer. I don't know. The only thing I can talk about is you can go to lazygardener.in. The great thing about that, how many times they've asked, how many regular intervals or things. So, like our fertilizer, it lasts 2 months. So obviously, you need it after every 2 months or every 10 weeks, kind of a thing, because it's a slow release one. If you use any other, normally it will get out of soil in 10 days. It gets leached out. So you will need to put it every 14 days. How can we maintain the red color in red anglonema? Red anglonema would lipstick plant. I think that's the one you're talking about. This is a question by Manali. I think I have never. I mean, I've seen plant retain that color always. It does very well inside your home. Keep it inside indoor, and it will retain the color. There should not be an issue with that. We have both red anglonema, pink anglonema, and they both retain the color. The coriander soaked in water got damaged. No, 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 no. You're talking about stem cuttings, is it? Are you talking from seeds or you're talking from stem cutting? Uh, okay, we'll do a video on. Let's do one on coriander. Let me go and buy coriander and get some coriander seeds. We'll do how to grow coriander on Sunday. Okay, let's do that. Okay, okay. I think I've covered all the questions which were related either to growing microgreens or to today's session. Uh, Thank you so much for everyone who's here. All the other questions also I read, and then we plan out to incorporate them in our videos or in our sessions, or we will get back to you with the answer in general over these sessions. We have still a lot of days to go. It's what, 11 days to go. That's not much. We should do something more. But thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining in today. See you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. It's always a great it's always a great experience for me to wait for this 4 o'clock so that I can discuss plants with you. I mean, that's the highlight of the day. Thank you so much for bringing joy to my day. And I hope this session was useful. Thank you and see you tomorrow at 4.